let's turn to Frankfort. The state's Board of Education held its first regular meeting yesterday, despite the threat of legal action to stop it. Governor Beshear dismantled the former board shortly after taking office, and since then, the members have been fighting that decision in court. According to the Courier-Journal, the group asked a judge for an emergency injunction, which could have taken effect ahead of the meeting. The interim commissioner says he learned about the injunction in the paper, but went ahead as planned.
We have a court system for a reason. As you know, my background, I'm an attorney by training, and so when there are disputes among citizens of the state, and that's a great thing about living in a democratic republic, that's why we have the court systems to help flesh those decisions out.
All right, the old board is partnering with the Bluegrass Institute for Public Policy Solutions for a lawsuit in U.S. District Court. There's no word on when an injunction ruling might be made. And Josh, as far as getting a new head of the Department of Education, they're going to be meeting with people next week. Hopefully have that in place by March, and then maybe it'll be smooth sailing. But
hopefully, this sort of conflict has been coming for a long time since we knew what Governor Beshear was going to do, and how opposed to Bevin's educational policies he was. My hope as a former teacher, as a parent of kids who are in school, is that this does not end up being one of those things where the infighting leads to uncertainty and a lack of clarity on what teachers are actually going to get out of this board, what decisions they can make, and how people can kind of trust their rulings and their lead. I hope it doesn't end up being a fight that drags out and ends up trickling down, affecting schools.
And children, and those kids that go to schools. I mean, it's hard to see it happening any other way because that's how infighting works, but let's hope. All right, let's stay with education for a minute. State leaders are considering another change to how Kentucky labels its lowest performing schools. The proposal calls for doing an evaluation of the bottom 5% of schools every 3 years instead of every year. If the plan gets the okay from state and federal officials, it would give those schools more time to make necessary changes before they're reevaluated, but it could also prevent them from getting access to state resources when they need them solely because of timing. And Josh, if a school is in the bottom 5%, 1 year is not enough to fix things. But those are also the schools that are typically in desperate need of funding, so it's a real conundrum.
Yeah, well, and if you're in the bottom 5%, and like you said, they need resources, right? They need to say, hey, look, we're struggling for whatever reason. We need some extra funds, or we need some sort of program put in place to help us out, but we're not up for review for 2 or 3 more years, and so nobody's going to know that we're in that, sort of bottom portion. This changing back and forth about policies is not good for schools. It's not good for students, like we were just talking about. I hope that this does not end up leading low-performing schools to not get the resources they need.
And rating systems, as we've talked about before too, are incredibly...
It's not Amazon reviews. It's not a 1 to 5 star thing. It's more complicated than that.
Yes, much more complicated. All right, now, a discussion of 2 recent troubling incidents caught on camera in Lexington. Police are investigating a possible hate crime involving a man seen at the Walmart on New Circle Road last week. He approached a table where an African-American woman who was marketing for Spectrum was working. The victim told police when she asked him about his cable service. The man approached her and made a motion with his hands, apparently telling her he was making a noose and then grabbing her neck.
In this case, we do believe that our suspect, who is a white male, said these things because the victim is African American. So we have to ask ourselves, would he have said those things, acted in that way, if not for the fact that our victim is African American?
Meanwhile, a federal lawsuit has been filed against Lexington police over last year's incident involving a police chaplain and a teen with autism. Cell phone video appeared to show Donovan Stewart punching the boy after officers were called to Fayette Mall for a complaint about 2 disorderly teens. Police won't comment on pending litigation. But Josh, let's go back to that first story. People really hate cable companies.
Sure.
But that had nothing to do with that. And I think we can safely assume that that was racially motivated.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's too loaded, right, to use that terminology, to use that gesture, and I hope that they can identify that person, because to be the victim and to be in that position, you're just trying to do your job, and have something like that happen to you is unthinkable. It's terrible for her.
And that thing, this is what I always hope people glean from some of these conversations, would never happen to you and me.
No, they might get annoyed, they might snap at us and walk on by.
It's a different
Never going to happen
experience in
to
life,
us.
so
Absolutely.
keep that in mind. All right, in other news, customers of another Eastern Kentucky water district are being hit with rate hikes. but it seems that illegal spending by leaders there is largely to blame. A Public Service Commission report shows that water commissioners in Knott County spent more than $133,000 of district money to pay for their own health insurance over the past 3 years. Records show the commissioners never took a vote on the matter and tried to keep it secret while asking for a rate increase. The PSC granted an immediate 45% hike, followed by an additional 15% a year from now, but also said the district would be justified in removing the commissioners from office. Duh. Yes, remove those commissioners from office. We are in a state where not everybody even has access to clean water right now, so let's not skim money off the top to pay for our own personal things.
There is nothing more infuriating than people in positions of power taking advantage of people who have no power, who are totally at their mercy, and doing things like this that are incredibly selfish. Yes, like you said, remove them yesterday.
Yeah, and because you don't have a choice. Like, you need water.
Yeah.
So if they double your rates, like, you got to find a way to pay for that because you need water. They're just screwing people, and that's wrong. All right, up next on Hey Kentucky, another former Wildcat is looking to a promising career in the NFL. Charismatic lineman Logan Stenberg talks about his time in a Kentucky uniform when we return.